back. WNST, Tassin, Baltimore, and Baltimore positive in my morphing from becoming a sports guy into really doing the Baltimore positive thing and talking about all the political things going on in our world. I have picked up all sorts of cool people along life's journey. This guy worked in the toy department forever and ever and ever. Now he is in residence at Johns Hopkins, and I know him from back in the days of USA Baseball Weekly and a longtime baseball writer in books like Summer 68 and Castro's Curveball. We welcome my dear friend Tim Wendel back on, who is local and Johns Hopkins oriented and back and forth and doing cancer crossings with leukemia. And, you know, you've graduated from the toy department of writing about baseball. Maybe this is the summer I get to escape from baseball because maybe there will be no baseball. Who knows, right?
Very much. This is so warped, Nestor. I mean, I'm still a baseball fan, but I was talking to my son the other day who lives now in London, and I raised him to be a baseball fan, and he's going, Dad, I don't know what to think of this. He's kind of moved on. So this ought to be
moved. What does moved on mean? Wait, so he lives somewhere where there is no baseball. There's no.
Yeah.
What does moved on mean? Does he check box scores? Does he ever watch? Does he watch the World Series?
I guess he'll watch the World Series when we get to that point. He gets, well, you know, he grew up in Northern Virginia, so he was watching the Nats last year, even though that seems like eons ago. But moved on means he's probably he's a big Chelsea fan. He's a big English Premier Soccer guy, so he's moved on to that. So that's what we watch together now in text, which is kind of cool in a way. You know, watch that on NBC and text with my son about Chelsea. So actually, I'm jumping around a bit, but we were visiting him in March, right as this happened. We were lucky to get out of London, and we went, he took me to a game. We went to the last game at Stamford Bridge.
Wow.
And,
I saw a game there back at the turn of the century, 99. I saw a Man U play there. I saw David Beckham play there after Christmas at Stamford Bridge, yeah. Chelsea, wow. Chelsea, Chelsea,
right.
Chelsea. Yeah, is that it?
I was getting all the cheers down. You got it.
Yeah, there you go.
That was good. So anyway, that's kind of what we talk about now. And
well, Chelsea is like regarded as like they've had a lot of racial issues there, right? Am I right or am I wrong?
Yep. You are right.
I don't know a lot about the EPL, but I know that much, right?
Yeah, they've had some, from what I understand. That I'm no expert on this, but they seem to have. Well, they got the American kid, and they've got a pretty up and coming team. So I don't know. We kind of watch that, and going back to baseball, I was thinking of you, you know, and prepping for the show because it was so serendipitous in a way that a guy that I've known for a long time in baseball, he's a top scout, he's a Latino, you know, scout guy. He and I were talking just a couple of days ago, and out of the blue, this stunned me, Nestor. He said, and we got talking about the season's moving ahead, okay, this looks very convoluted, etc. And I kept wanting to talk about schedules and who's favored and etc. And he said, you're forgetting the elephant in the room. And I went, okay, right, COVID, right? We're back to that. And he maintains that we're going to go ahead with this 60-game regular season. He really seriously wonders if one or two or maybe even as many as three teams or so will not be able to finish it because of COVID. So therefore, the games that were scheduled for you to play this Team X, we'll call them, and they get so many guys with COVID and it goes out of control.
Well, that's what the NFL is for me. You know, I've been talking about this all week. I just came back from North Carolina. And, Tim, and I know you follow me on social about masks, and we'll get into Americana. I promised everyone we were going to do America, baseball, 4th of July. You know, this week I have not talked baseball with anybody in months. I haven't called my friends like you. I haven't talked sports since March, literally, since this went away, because I'm like, what's the point? You know, I mean, we're all just sort of scratching our heads saying, ain't never been through anything like this before. But in the football side of this, they marched on, had a draft, and did their Zoom thing, and they're pretending this is all going to be good. And I'm a blue sky guy. I'm Baltimore positive, as it says. I'd love to say, yeah, we're going to play baseball, and yeah, everything's going to be good on football. I'm seeing these college campuses come together now, Clemson with 37 players. I can't fathom that they're going to play 17 weeks of 32 teams and keep these guys in a bubble and keep their ex-wives from chasing them around and keeping them out of bars and keeping them. I saw the tennis players out running around the other day. They're an individual sport, right, where they literally could get away with it and play and make their money, and they're still doing stupid stuff because they're young and they're rich and they like girls and they like friends and they like social things. And I think to some degree, done 3-4 months of it. That's enough. It's over for me. Let's let the guard down. And clearly the whole south of the country is dealing with that. But from a sports perspective, I know they're going to try to start, right? Because there's all this money involved and all these moving parts and let's get America going and all that. But I can't fathom how they're not going to have whole NFL teams infiltrated and you're just going to be shut down for a month in the middle of the season. That's not going to happen. It is you just haven't been paying attention if you think that because you're arrogant enough and rich enough to think like you're going to field a team and it's all going to be okay. I'm not buying it, Tim, because I know scientists and I've been paying attention to this. I'm not buying that it's going to work.
I think you're exactly right. And I was reminded of this. My daughter's a doctor. She's been front lines, emergency medicine, and ICU and all this for as this was going on. She just moved from North Carolina, where it's spiking, so it looks like she got out of there at a good time. She took up a new position in Denver at the big hospital complex out there in Aurora. And I was supposed to drive cross-country with her last week. And first of all, she put the nix on that. She said, "Dad, you're not doing that because I'm afraid of you flying back on the planes." Okay, I'll buy into that. She made it in there last night. But she went close to 250 miles out of her way. She was going out of Winston-Salem. She was down there with Wake Forest, the big hospital complex there. She went north to pick up I-70, I believe, around Indianapolis, and then just go right across the plains that way. And she's telling me the way she's going, and I've got the maps out, and I'm going, "Hon, what are you doing?" And she's going, "Dad, I'm not going across Tennessee. I'm not going across Arkansas. I'm not getting close to Oklahoma." She knows the numbers. She knows what's going on. And that's the way we're at. And it boggles me that people just won't, do this for the good of their common people, their neighborhood, their friends, even strangers. So I think you're absolutely right. I think everybody, whether it's the colleges, whether it's the NFL, whether it's Major League Baseball, a lot of money at stake, and so they're going to try to push and go ahead, and it's going to be interesting to see where the wheels come off the bus here.
Tim Wendel has been my longtime friend. He is a writer in residence at Johns Hopkins. He's written all sorts of books on baseball and cancer and leukemia and all sorts of cool stuff. And you can follow him. He's out on Twitter sometimes. He's on LinkedIn. He's all over the place. And certainly our background is in baseball. But more than that, Tim, and maybe this is where you and I being writers and being people that investigated stuff, like literally not policemen or detectives or like that, but sort of detectives in a different way to search for, at the end, what the story is. Who, what, where, why, when, and accurately what is, and to distill it all down, what's the truth? As newspaper reporters or as writers, unless we're doing fiction, some of what's going on in the federal government feels like fiction right now, but it's fact. And we've had a whole lifetime, and I was trained by guys like you, guys much older and better looking like you, who took me in when I was 15 years old and make sure that if I wrote it in the newspaper that I wasn't making it up, that it had to be verified, you had to have sources, there had to be facts, and you had to question things that people would say to you and say, is that true or is that not true? And how can I know it's true? Because my name's on the byline. And if it's got my name on it, it has to be true because it's got my name on it. The rest of the world didn't live that way, right? The rest of the world was buying pet rocks and believing what's in phone booth and buying the tabloids at the checkouts and whatever, believing whatever the wind tells them. This is a very, very scary time in humanity that we have gotten Orwellian with what people believe. You know what I mean? Like what crazy things you could believe and then espouse and have other people believe it too.
Yeah, very much. It's funny as you were saying that. One of the things I've brought, and I didn't think, what I'm saying is I'm stressing this now more, even with my grad students at Hopkins and even elsewhere. Again, just before this hit, I was down as a visiting writer at University of Texas before we went on to London. And one of the things I'm stressing is I want to see a reference list. I want to see kind of at least a thumbnail where you got some of this information. And I'm stunned at times how some students will put down like Wikipedia and some of this other stuff. And I'm going, guys, let's go deeper than this. And they'll even,
and there is no they don't know the depth of that. Wikipedia is where I get everything.
That's right. And they don't know, hey, I could go from Google to Google Scholar and such. And thank God, we just did a session the other day, and we did it Zoom. Everything's Zoom. I feel like I'm playing, I don't know, some kind of weird cross between the Brady Bunch and Hollywood Squares or something. But everything's on Zoom, of course. And we did a Zoom session last week with one of the top research librarians at Johns Hopkins. And I pretty much said, guys, you got to make this. This is, I don't require a lot of things, especially, but this is one. And it drove the scales from their eyes. We were getting into Google Scholar, we're getting into ProQuest, all these search engines, and you just see some, not all, but some of the students just going, whoa, look at all this. And this is how you really ferret out what's legit and what isn't. And as you say, your name's on it. I mean, that should mean a lot. And I go back to when I first started in newspapers, up in Buffalo and then down at USA Today. I mean, the worst sin you could have is some kind of inaccuracy, even to certainly misspelling somebody's name.
I was going to say, if I get a letter wrong, if I had an apostrophe wrong, this is the precision with which the English language works, right? As taught by Alan Stockett and Susan Mundy and Don Moeller back in the day when I was a kid. We went to school for a reason, to get it right. And I'm not blown away that the same people who don't have proficient writing skills or spelling skills, even when everything is spell checkable, there's a whole program that fixes it so you don't look like an idiot when you're right, and yet you still look like an idiot when you're right. And it's really blown me away over 15 years now on Facebook, right, to see who these people that I've known for a long time that weren't the best students, let's say 35 years ago when I was around, that they are the ones with the red hats. I mean, I had a dear friend of mine the other day who I do respect his intellect, maybe not on the scientific side of that or the world travel side of that, who professed on his Facebook page that perhaps the Chinese made the virus, right? All right, that's a great red hat, stupid Trump MAGA thing to say. But the good news for you is there are like scientists and doctors out there. And the good news for you is you got a guy like me who had a wife with leukemia who knows a little bit about this. And the really good news is you got a guy like me that knows a guy like Tim Wendel, wrote a book on leukemia called Cancer Crossings, that could say that their ability to understand the science and the pathology of a virus like this is so precise in that way, to know what animal it came from and where it came from in Wuhan, to even profess that this was somehow sent around the world by Dr. Evil, just makes you ignorant. I don't know what else to say, but I got into, and you know what he said to me? Well, you can believe what you want, and I'll believe what I want. And I'm like, no, but it doesn't work that way. It's science. Yeah. It's not an opinion about what the defensive coordinator did or whether the Buck Showalter should have pulled the relief pitcher or not. That's not the argument we're having here. We're having the argument about whether a virus was man-made or not, and every scientist in the world that's not employed by this Orange TV con man would tell you that this was an animal-born virus that made its way into humans, as coronaviruses do, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, somehow we got into this very dangerous thing when it came to science. I think, Nestor, where some degree of the populace thinks it's a closed door. And I see some of these comments, and I think back to when I was starting Cancer Crossings, and I was, in a sense, what I was doing was following the doctors that, in a sense, tried to save my brother, but more importantly, for the general theme, took childhood leukemia from a 10% survival rate to the 90% survival rate, remission rate it has today. Now, I'm coming, from a sports world. I'm written about Cuba.
And you've been grieving your brother for a long time, right? Literally.
Sure.
And
sure.
thinking,
And so,
like my wife in the other room right now, if this were now, we like polio, we'd have this, we like the coronavirus. I mean, I'm about to lose a childhood friend of mine. She's going to die this week from coronavirus,
yeah.
Like that's going to happen this week. That had we solved this, she'd be alive next week, right? Literally, right?
Right. But the thing is, I totally agree. And the thing is, I didn't know this science, but it wasn't like it was closed off to me. I had a number of these doctors, one of them being Dr. Donald Pinkel, started up St. Jude in Memphis, and, Dr. James Holland, who was like one of the icons of this era. It wasn't like they said, you don't know anything, schmo, get out of here. They kind of said, well, okay, well, you need to look at this. Now, do you have some questions?
Kind of like Johnny Oates did to me back in '93.
Yeah. But the thing is, the door's open if you show at least that you want to know more about it. And I still remember one of the doctors at one point, this is where I knew I was getting somewhere, because I was spinning my wheels big time. I'm looking at these clinical trials. I'm looking at these reports. I'm going, whoa, my head hurts.
I'm not a doctor. This is why I went into sports writing.
That's right. But at one point, I remember one of the doctors, we got together for lunch, and God bless his heart, he's now like 88 or something like that. We still talk on the phone. And he said, in a sense, what I'd been waiting to hear, even though I didn't know it. He said, Tim, you're starting to ask the right questions. And I went, here we go. Okay, I'm going through the door now. And I'm still no great expert on, I don't know, leukemia or whatever, but I'm able to pull it together and know the meds enough and know the story. And I think if just people are just a little bit more curious and wanted to know the story, wanted to know the narrative, as opposed to going with mottos or, catchwords or something like that, we'd all be a lot better off.
Tim Wendel's been writing about baseball and life and cancer and all of these great things that move the world along, including a follow-up to Castro's curveball, which we may or may not talk about. All right, so, I brought you on to talk about America and science and your book and leukemia and all, but baseball. Baseball is what brought us together, and friends of ours like Mike Rosigliano and, I'm at a point, now I'm 52, and I was down in Nags Head last week, and Tim, just a little personal story, and I talked to Luke about this. The first time I was in Nags Head was back in the early 90s. It was August 1st, 1994, and I spent a week in a big house down there in the summer of 1994 after Baltimore had lost Charlotte and Jacksonville for expansion, contemplating life in Baltimore in September of 1994 as a sports radio guy, Nasty Nestor, with no baseball. And I was down in Nags Head last week watching all of the gyrations of Rob Manfred and the Players Association, the back and forth of all that, 26 years later. And in 94 it was, oh my God, they're going to take baseball. They're going to take the World Series. My dad might cancel Sporting News again like he did in 81. And now it's like, I don't even want them to play. I don't think it's a good idea. I know the Angelos family doesn't want to play because they're going to lose more money playing than they would if they don't. It feels like there might be a dozen owners who feel that way. What do you take out of this? Because, you covered the wars of all wars. I have a feeling that back in 94, you stood outside of some of those meetings at the Rosemont Hyatt or wherever the hell they were fighting back in the day and reported on some of that. A lifetime later, man, these are some greedy... people that I'm not around anymore because they took my press pass away, and maybe it was better that way. These they don't get it. At all, and I don't know that they're ever gonna get it. But I like it less, Tim. I'm less interested in it, and most people I know who are sane are less interested in it too. In Baltimore, specifically here.
Yeah, and I think you could say that for a large swaths of the country where I can't believe Nestor we're back to this point. I was lead labor guy for Baseball Weekly, and also did a fair amount for USA Today. I was there all these meetings with Hal Bodley and Rod Beaton, and I can't believe we're back to this. I just go, haven't we learned anything? And maybe it says something about millionaires and billionaires existing in bubbles and such, and where I you can tell I'm skeptical about the season in terms of the 60-game season for COVID and and whatever's going to happen in the playoffs. Are they going to finish it and such? But I think it's soured things so much. I'm more worried about this next contract expiring between the players and the owners, because I'm going, this looks like the Armageddon I covered and the build-up to it. Because I was in early. I mean, I started covering it in '93. They're bringing in Dick Ravitch from New York City politics, and he's going to break the players union, and they're all gung-ho about that. I'm just going, here we go again. And part of me is just going, haven't we learned anything? Yeah, I don't know if you knew him, a guy named Ross Newen.
I knew Ross. His son played for the Orioles. Absolutely.
Exactly. And he put up a thing up on Facebook a couple weeks ago just talking about this. I can't believe we're at this point. And he and I were going back and forth. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm 52 and I feel the same way. I mean, beginning of my career was 1991 on radio, right? So, I sat for 8 months every day in Baltimore, Maryland, from 4 in the afternoon till 7 in the afternoon, every day in August, September, October, November, December. Then Joe Smith started dunking basketballs in January and February. Then he went away. And, I went through all of the scorched earth after that. And watching this McGuire Sosa spectacle 2 weeks ago on ESPN again, and all the Ripken stuff. But more than, I want to bring you to this because you were in on this. This is the reason I bring you around. And John Schuerholz is coming on after you, so I'll talk to him. But in the early 90s, the first time I ever saw Rob Manfred was during the '94 strike when he was kind of being a jerk, right? Like he kind of was the jerk lawyer out in front of all of this stuff. I remember him being young. Now he's running the sport, and I'm thinking, is he any different, or what is this behind closed doors when you have the hammer lawyer running the sport, literally?
Yeah, it was Felix in my mind. I always think of him as the right-hand man, and it's unfortunate that that there's personalities in any group, and I worry about the personalities that are still with these two entities, and I'm talking the owners and the players union. I mean, we've lost some people that were able to take the edge off things, even have a joke. I mean, the guy I miss tremendously in this is Paul Beeston, who was the top guy with the Blue Jays, who had this, I profiled him back in the day for Esquire magazine, and he had this rare ability to bring people together. He had a rare ability to make them laugh. We share a laugh. Oh, you're a human being.
Well, he was
too.
Canadian too, so he had a different sensibility about him, right?
Yeah, but he was very much a self-made guy too, and I just I worry we've got. I don't know. I found myself the other day thinking, baseball's again maybe reflecting the nation. It seems like the extremists are the ones driving the bus, and the several buses, and they're driving them in a big game of chicken, I guess. And I didn't know Manfred super well, but I always saw him as, I never saw him disagree with Selig, and that's the reason. Other John Harrington, who used to be with the Red Sox, etc. This is why other people kind of got out of it, sooner or later, because they didn't want to go lockstep. The ones that have remained are the ones that are still walking in lockstep. And that has me worried. That has me worried about, next couple months, which is going to be kind of weird, but it also has me worried about where does this go for baseball? Because if these guys can't get it together, and if we have another labor debacle like I covered in '94, '95, I think that's the death knell for the sport. And somehow they don't get it. Sports go away all the time. It wasn't that long ago, two generations ago, boxing was huge.
And horse racing.
And all this stuff. And there's no guarantee you're going to be front and center. And it's funny, you bring up the NFL. I think this is something maybe they have to watch out for, too. It seems like all these sports kind of fade away when people get a little too arrogant for their own good.
They need to be watered, for sure. And, hey, man, I'm glad I've watered our friendship over 30 years. Tim Wendel is here, Find Him at Cancer Crossings, and his leukemia work and research, of course, Johns Hopkins writer in residence. And, I'll get back together with you again soon, maybe when they start playing some baseball. We can, exchange some stories. I know you're working on the Castro's curveball follow-up and all that stuff, but but I always love catching up with you. At some point, we'll get 5.5 feet away and maybe share an adult beverage or something, all right?
Oh, I'd love that. That would be awesome. That would be great, Nestor.
Tim, appreciate you, man, and you stay safe out there, all right?
Okay, you too, my friend.
Tim Wendel, formerly of USA Baseball Weekly and longtime baseball writer, written so many great books, Summer 68, many, many others, which we could talk Summer 68. Everybody else is calling about Summer 68. I didn't even mention Summer 68. Next time, we'll do that in August with Tim Wendel. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, everywhere the World Wide Web travels. Calm, local, and Baltimore positive.